A man is not defeated when he is broken, but when he loses control of himself. Have you ever noticed how the greatest downfalls in life rarely come from what others do to us? They come from what we fail to govern within ourselves. One careless word can end a friendship. One angry outburst can destroy years of respect. One reckless purchase can cripple a future, and one undisciplined thought can burn a lifetime of peace. Albert Einstein once said, "The world we have created is a product of our thinking." And yet, many live as if their thoughts, emotions, and actions are someone else's responsibility. This is not just motivational speech. This is a warning. Control your mouth, your mood, your money, and your mind, or you may lose everything you once took for granted. Let's begin. The world does not fall apart in a single moment. It crumbles slowly with small cracks, often from within. And these cracks are almost always born from what we fail to control. Before empires fall, before families shatter, before a man loses his way, there are signs. Silent, subtle, often ignored. It begins with a word spoken in haste, a moment surrendered to rage, a careless expense, or a single thought left unchecked. Control is not about domination. It is about alignment, and to live a life of wisdom and meaning, one must first become the guardian of the four gates: the mouth, the mood, the money, and the mind. The mouth is the first gate. Words are not mere sounds, they are seeds. Every time we speak, we plant something, a flower or a thorn, a bridge or a barrier. What we say can lift someone into light or plunge them into silence. The old saying, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me," was never true. Words do hurt. They leave scars deeper than bruises. A sarcastic remark can linger in a soul for years. A cruel insult, once thrown, cannot be unspoken. But so can love, encouragement, and truth build someone from ashes. That is the power of the mouth. Einstein once observed that imagination is more important than knowledge. But imagination, like fire, needs words to ignite the world. If our words are careless, sarcastic, or cruel, we burn things down. If our words are thoughtful, sincere, and true, we illuminate. Every great philosopher, from Socrates to the sages of the East, reminded us of the sacredness of speech. Socrates taught through dialogue, but he also taught restrain. Only speak if it is true, good, and necessary. If not, let silence be your wisdom, because silence has never started a war, but one sentence has. Then comes the mood. This is the second gate, and perhaps the most volatile. We live in a world that praises emotional expression, but seldom speaks of emotional mastery. Feelings come like waves, but we were never meant to drown in them. The one who cannot control their mood becomes a puppet of the moment. They shout when angry. They withdraw when hurt. They lash out, not knowing they're burning their own home to the ground. How many apologies are born from a moment of emotional blindness? How many relationships fall apart, not because of a lack of love, but because of a lack of patience? Marcus Aurelius, in his quiet notes to himself, wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. But he also warned that if we let others or our own impulses disturb our peace, we surrender our very freedom. Control of mood does not mean suppression. It means awareness. It means noticing the storm without becoming it. It means pausing before responding, breathing before reacting. It is the art of governing internal before being governed by the external. For if you cannot rule your emotions, someone else will use them to rule you. And then the third gate, money, a topic less poetic, yet deeply revealing. Money is a mirror. It reflects what we value, what we fear, what we chase. Most people do not have a money problem. They have a meaning problem. They spend time feeling alive. They buy to silence the void. They chase more to escape what is not fulfilled within. But money, unmanaged, becomes a slow poison. It breeds anxiety, dependence, and illusion. People trade time for things, thinking things will buy back the time. They never do. Laozi, the ancient sage, said, "He who knows he has enough is rich." Not rich in currency, but in clarity. When you learn to live simply, spend wisely, and invest in what truly matters. Like health, relationships, peace, you become free. But when you let your desires grow unchecked, when you try to fill spiritual hunger with material indulgence, you become a prisoner of endless wanting. Money, like fire, can cook your food or burn down your house. Its power lies in how you use it. And finally, the mind, the fourth and most sacred gate. Everything begins here. A careless word starts with a thought. An emotional storm starts with a belief. A reckless purchase begins with a desire born in the mind. Einstein, in his deep reflections, reminded us again and again that the problems we face cannot be solved with the same level of thinking that created them, which means, unless we elevate our thinking, we remain trapped in cycles we cannot escape. But most people do not govern their mind, they are governed by it. Their thoughts run wild, their fears shape their choices, their judgments cloud their vision, and their inner critic becomes louder than their inner truth. They are consumed by comparison, addicted to stimulation, and unaware of the quiet voice beneath the noise. The mind must be trained, not just filled. It must be disciplined, not just entertained. The greatest thinkers in history, from Epictetus to the Buddha, all taught the same principle. If you do not watch your thoughts, they will watch you, haunt you, deceive you, control you. But when you begin to observe, to question, to choose your thoughts rather than be consumed by them, you reclaim power that was always yours. To control the mind is to build a foundation for every other gate. It is the command center. When it is still, your words become more thoughtful, your mood becomes more stable, your use of money becomes more mindful, and your life becomes more meaningful. This is not about perfection. No one can master all four gates all the time. But the practice, the pursuit, the intention, that is where transformation lives. We do not climb a mountain in one step. We take one breath, one choice, one moment of awareness at a time. When you begin to guard your mouth, you protect your relationships. When you master your mood, you preserve your inner peace. When you manage your money, you unlock true freedom. And when you govern your mind, you gain sovereignty over your entire life. This is the wisdom that echoes through centuries, spoken by the Stoics, whispered by the mystics, and confirmed by the experiences of millions. That inner control precedes outer success, that the world may not always be in your hands, but your response always is. And now, as we cross the threshold from understanding into reflection, the question becomes more personal. How do these truths live in you? Which of the four gates have you left unguarded? Which part of you has been running wild, while your better self silently watches? Because control is not a cage. It is the path to freedom, a freedom not given by the world, but created by the self who decides to rule within before trying to rule anything without. We spend our lives searching for control in the outer world. We try to control our careers, our relationships, our appearance, our status. We hold tightly to routines and plans, convinced that certainty is the path to safety. Yet all the while, we overlook the only control that truly matters, the inner one, the quiet mastery over our impulses, our reactions, our thoughts. Not the world outside, but the world within. Most people walk through life unaware of this truth. They react before reflecting. They speak before thinking. They spend before considering. They believe every thought their mind throws at them as if it were law. But without inner discipline, even the most brilliant life will slowly unravel. This is not a punishment. It is a pattern, and it happens to all who abandon self-awareness in favor of comfort or distraction. Imagine a person who builds a beautiful house but leaves the front door open to storms. The rain comes, the wind howls, and over time, what was once strong begins to rot. The floor creaks, the roof leaks, the warmth disappears. That house is our life, and the open door is what we fail to control. A mouth that lashes out, a mood that swings wildly, a wallet that bleeds with impulse, A mind that wanders in darkness. Slowly, the strength erodes. The foundation weakens. But here is the truth. Control is not repression. It is liberation. It is choosing to be a conscious architect of your life rather than a passive tenant. When you speak with intention, your words begin to heal rather than harm. When you master your emotions, you become a safe place for yourself and others. When you treat money as a tool rather than a trophy, it begins to serve your highest values. And when your mind is no longer your enemy, peace becomes your constant companion. This is not theory, it is lived experience. We have all known what it feels like to lose control, to say something we regret, to make a decision in anger, to spend what we did not have, to believe a lie our mind created. And we've also known the silent pain that follows, the damage to a relationship, the shame in our own reflection, the anxiety we carry forward. These are not random accidents. They are lessons repeated until learned. Real strength is not measured in dominance over others, but in discipline over self. The world will always test us. We will be provoked, misjudged, underestimated. But in those moments, we get to choose. Will I let the world shape me, or will I shape myself despite the world? Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." What he meant was simple. If we do not pause to look inward, to question ourselves, to seek understanding over reaction, we are merely surviving, not living. We become leaves in the wind, carried by whatever external force pulls us next. But when we examine, when we reflect, we begin to build. We begin to remember that the voice within us is not powerless. It is sacred, that we are not bound by the habits we inherited or the emotions we absorbed. That control is not about becoming someone else. It is about returning to who we were before the world distracted us. There is a moment of stillness available to all of us, no matter how chaotic life becomes. A space between stimulus and response, a breath before the word, a silence before the storm, and it is in that space that transformation begins. In that pause, we reclaim our power. It is easy to blame others, easy to say, "He made me angry," or "She made me spend," or "This world is too much." But blame is the language of the powerless. Responsibility is the beginning of freedom, and when we start to take ownership, not just of our actions, but of the inner movements that shape them, we start to change not just outcomes, but identity. Control your mouth, and you begin to speak your future into existence. Speak with cruelty, and you build a world of conflict. Speak with clarity, and you build bridges. Speak with love, and you leave echoes that outlast your voice. Control your mood, and you become calm in the storm, the person others look to, not because you have all the answers, but because you are not swept away by every wind. You become solid, grounded, peaceful, not because life is easy, but because you are rooted in something deeper. Control your money, and you no longer chase symbols. You invest in meaning. You learn to say no, not because you are deprived, but because you know the value of yes. You stop buying to impress and start living to express. Simplicity becomes a form of wealth. Clarity becomes your currency. Control your mind, and you no longer accept every fear as fact. You begin to notice which thoughts serve you and which enslave you. You learn that most suffering is not from life itself, but from how we interpret it, and the mind, once trained, becomes your ally instead of your prison. These four, mouth, mood, money, and mind, are not separate. They are threads in the same fabric. When one unravels, the whole begins to tear. But when all are aligned, life becomes less chaotic and more meaningful. We become less reactive and more intentional. We stop surviving and begin living. And so the question is not, can I control all of this perfectly? Perfection is not the goal. The question is, am I willing to try? Am I willing to wake up to the ways I give away my power and take it back, one choice at a time? Because control is not about becoming rigid. It is about becoming wise. It is about seeing clearly, choosing consciously, and living courageously, not because we have mastered life, but because we have started to master ourselves. The mouth, the mood, the money, the mind, they are all waiting for your attention, your care, your leadership, and the life you want. Calm, meaningful, whole begins where your control does. Now the journey turns inward again. We've explored the power of self-governance. We've seen how the unexamined life can quietly unravel. And now it's time to step even deeper into the heart of it all, to move from practice to presence, from concept to transformation, to understand why this control is not just discipline, but destiny. There comes a moment in every life where the mirror becomes more than glass. It becomes truth. We stop looking at our reflection to fix what's on the surface and start seeing what lies beneath. The quiet habits, the old wounds, the hidden patterns, the parts of ourselves we've long ignored. And in that raw honesty, a question rises, not from the mind, but from the soul. Am I truly in control of the life I'm living, or am I just drifting through it? We've spoken of mastery, of the mouth that speaks life or destruction, of the mood that calms or corrupts, of the money that frees or binds, of the mind that elevates or imprisons. But these are not merely habits to manage. They are gateways to something far more sacred. Shaping of one's destiny, the sculpting of a soul into something conscious, intentional, whole. Because in truth, control is not about rigidity or suppression. It's about freedom. A kind of freedom most people never taste because they are too entangled in reaction. A word said in anger here. Impulsive decision there, days spent chasing pleasure, nights drowned in thought. Year after year passes in the fog, and slowly the life we could have lived fades into the life we settled for. But there's another path, one carved not by circumstance but by choice, one built not on grand resolutions but on quiet revolutions. The revolution of restraint, of wisdom, of watching your own mind with the curiosity of a philosopher and the compassion of a healer. That is where greatness begins, not in what you control outside, but in what you master within. Albert Einstein, a man known more for his intellect than his insight, once said something profoundly simple. The measure of intelligence is the ability to change, and yet so many stay the same, talking the same, reacting the same, thinking the same, even as life offers them signs and storms as invitations to evolve. Change does not happen in the world. It happens the moment you decide that your inner state is worth guarding more than your reputation, your opinion, or your pride. And so you begin. You start with the mouth, not by silencing it, but by sanctifying it, realizing that your words are not just sounds, but seeds, that every sentence plants something in someone's mind, in someone's heart, in your own future. And slowly you shift. You catch yourself before speaking just to be right. You pause before saying what wounds. You begin to ask, will this build or will it break? And your world changes, not because others change, but because your language becomes a source of light. Then you tend to your mood, not by pretending to be unaffected, but by becoming aware of what you let in and what you let out. You stop letting minor frustrations define your day. You stop giving your peace away to people who never earned it. You learn that emotions are not enemies to fight, but messengers to listen to. Anger might be telling you there's something unhealed. Sadness might be asking you to slow down, and you stop being afraid of feeling, because now you are feeling with wisdom, not reaction. Money, too, becomes something different, not just a number in a bank or a symbol of worth, but a reflection of values. You stop chasing it just to prove something. You stop spending it just to feel something. You begin to align it with what matters: freedom, purpose, impact. You realize that enough is a moving target until you decide what enough looks like for you. And when you do, you stop living in the shadow of more and start living in the light of meaning. And the mind, the mind, the hardest to govern, but the most powerful. You no longer believe every thought it offers. You question the old stories. You notice the voice that says, "You can't," and ask, "Who told you that?" You begin to see how your mind has been shaped by childhood, by trauma, by culture, by comparison, and you begin slowly to reshape it, not with force, but with presence, not with pressure, but with love, and that love becomes your new lens. You don't just think differently, you become someone different, someone clearer, softer, stronger. This is the hidden truth behind all lasting transformation. It is not loud, it is not glamorous, it is not something you announce to the world. It is something you live moment by moment. It is the quiet decision to no longer betray yourself, to no longer abandon your inner authority in favor of temporary comfort or external approval. It is the decision to become who you were before the world taught you to be afraid. And yes, you will fail. You will speak carelessly. You will lose your temper. You will waste money. You will spiral in thought. But now you will notice. You will return. You will forgive. You will try again. That is the difference between those who evolve and those who remain stuck. Not perfection, but presence. Not flawless control, but a faithful return to the path. Because what's really at stake here is not just your reputation, your finances, your mood, or your relationships. It's your life. Your one brief, sacred, irreplaceable life. And every time you choose awareness over reaction, every time you pause instead of explode, every time you lead your thoughts instead of being led by them, you step into that life more fully. This is not discipline for the sake of rules. This is discipline for the sake of freedom, so you can love without manipulation, so you can speak without regret, so you can walk through this world clear in your values, rooted in your truth, and untouched by the chaos around you. You will lose many things in life: time, people, opportunities, but do not lose yourself. Do not lose the part of you that watches over the rest, that sacred inner observer who knows when you've strayed, who quietly waits for your return. That is your true self, and it is always calling you home. So, let this not be just a warning from Einstein or a poetic lesson from philosophy. Let it be a mirror, a reminder that control is not a burden. It is a gift, a responsibility, a power, one that, when accepted, can change not just what you do, but who you are. And perhaps the greatest miracle of all is this: it's never too late to begin. Not tomorrow, not someday, but now, in this breath, at this moment, in this quiet space between who you were and who you could still become.